Those in the building, assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Yeah. Cool. We pulled the teaching and the references for tonight from a couple of different sources, I think two or three books and PDFs that are that have writings on the topic. Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, Mauritania, and Mauritanian poets. We heard Sheikh Sufi mention the story about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba and his trials and tribulations dealing with the French, right, and being sent off to exile in Mauritania. But from these few sources here, we'll see that there's another perspective to that story. Instead of looking at it from a person with a spiritual attachment to Senegal, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, and seeing him get sent to Mauritania, some of the quotes and sayings about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba will go over tonight are from the perspective of people that were already in Mauritania and had heard about this person, but had never seen him before. And now he pops up on exile, right? So just a moment, I'll get those references pulled up. And in the there they are. We'll shake off the Bamba side to open up, inshallah. We'll invite a few angels in. Rabbi Karimun, the name of this Kasai, Rabbi Karimun, Rabbi, or my Lord, your Lord, our Lord. Karimun is generous, is the most generous one, Rabbi Karimun. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإني أعوذها بك وذريتها من الشيطان الرجيم ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشيطان وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله الله أكبر أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق بسم الله الذي لا يحضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Astaghfirullah for the siren. I live a block and a half away from a fire station. DJ, run that back, Turbo. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin al-Fatihi lima uglika wal-Khatimi lima sabaka nasir al-haqi bil-haqi wal-hadi ila siratika al-mustaqim wa ala alihi haqqa qadrihi wa miqdarihi al-azim salatan tanshuru biha ala al-yawma ba'da al-yawmi barakati sirra al-asrari khawlika radiyallahu anhum ورضيه عنه وجل هذه القاصدة التي أخذيها من حروفي فوابزاني في الدنيا والآخرة وواصل لي وصيوفهما آمين يا رب العالمين ربي كريم واسع ويفاضل وواصلات عبد لديه مفاضل ربي كريم واسع ويفاضل ووصلات عبد لديه مفاضل ربي كريم واسع ويفاضل ووصلات عبد لديه مفاضل فيك وفاخر قد أزلهما معا بالمصطفى من سبقه لا يدخل يا ربي صل على الحبيب محمد والآل والأصحاب من قد فضلوا أزكى صلاة مع سلام والتدم رضوانهم يا من بواتك آمنوا لك كالكفي لك جرستي لك نيتي لك غربتي ومواتني والمنزل لك نلبس الويراتي ما أويها ولك مداد والمشرب والماخل هب لي إذا متى ما تحب وترتدي بمسكن تبلتي لك تنزل أنقى يا هل وانت هل راضيا وإليك قاصدي راجيا لك أرحل وجيت ربا واسيا قد خدني بالجود والإكرام نعم المنزل هو مالك هو نافع هو رافع هو واسع وهو جامل المجمل مالك له شاط وغرب وحده وكذا له بحر وبحر يكمل واجي له واسع بالمصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم وبآله البعد رفقتي استغفر الله وبآله بعدهم رفقتي من كملوا رضوانه من دوقه رداه عليهم وعلى رافقهم الذي يتتافل ضيف ضاعف يرتجي بهم القرى بما اليكارم من يشاء ويبجل وليت لوح وواس وليت لوح ولعس مدبران إلهي بالقرآن ونعم المنزل أبغي به وبخدمتي مع النبي وهو الذي من أمه لا يزل أبدا له ويسه لي ما أشتهي وعليه جلال جلاله وتوكلوا ناجيته ورددت عنه وأرتجي أول رده عنده قد يفضل قبل مناول على الوسيلة سليا يا من يقدم من يشاء ومن يفضل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين. May peace be upon the mursaleen, that's you and me. Know what I mean? Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Okay, sitting follow. 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 I mean, that when the plane gets ready to take off and the captain's like, all right, we've reached clear and smooth sides. You can now unbuckle your seatbelt. Now keep your seatbelts on. Keep your seatbelts on. Let's see if we can get this pulled up and shine. And shine. Hmm. Testimonies of Mauritanian poets and scholars on Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Mauritanian poets. There'll be a very specific reference at the very specific people in Mauritania that I won't spoil it, but there's a certain perspective that certain types of people in Mauritania held against certain types of people who might have came from some darker places in Africa. Stuff a lot. But I do not think that is the first page. Here the line. Here we are. brief intro about that exile from Senegal to Mauritania, and then to the perspective of these sheikhs and master teachers, wali, poets, writers of sides, just like Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba wrote from the perspective of people in Mauritania. Let's see how they viewed our beloved Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba Rasul. He's beloved to me. I know he's beloved to you, but beloved is Sheikh Fodane to the people in the place where he was sent off for exile. All right, so we'll see. This page might look familiar. This might be page 13 out of Sheikh Sufi's book, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, Life, Teachings, and Poetry. Get that, get that, get that. Second half of the book got some real deal Holyfield in it, but I'm getting sidetracked, right? Now, in this exile, we'll breeze through this, right? So the French requested this person, Sidi Baba, to guarantee the stay of Seraing Touba in Mauritania. Make sure you stayed there. Make sure you got there. Make sure you stayed there. Sidi Baba was one of the highest saints in Mauritania at that time. And Sheikh tells us in this writing, he was also the head of one of the principal branches of the Qadiriya Tariqat there. Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's father, paternal line, was already Qadiri. So we'll see how that comes into play when we see how people in other countries were looking at people that came from blacker parts of Africa. Those other people in other parts of the countries are also invaders and outsiders, but we'll see when we get there. But there were two branches of this Qadiri Tariqat in Mauritania at that time. I see Sidi Baba, guy that's guaranteeing the stay of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba in Mauritania while on exile, came from the Silsila with a chain of Mukhtar al-Kunti. Pause. Look up that Kunti family. Look up that Kunti family and a very particular keyword in your spare time. The Kunti family or the Kunti tribe and slavery. I'm shocked to see the perspective that it's taught from, right? For this Kunti tribe was the one that was capturing their fellow people and sending them off into war. But the person that a lot of us do hold up in high regard is a direct descendant of this same exact Kunti family here. I don't believe it or not. Mansa Musa descends from that exact same line. That exact same line. Is Mansa Musa a Qadiri? I don't know. Let's start for a while. But this Kunti that Sidi Baba was attached to, that was following Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba to make sure he's good, he's staying in Mauritania on exile, was the Kutub of his time. So as far as Mauritanians viewed this Sidi Baba, he was higher than anybody that could show up to Mauritania. He was higher than anybody that couldn't show up to Mauritania. He was higher than anybody in any other order anywhere else. Can't Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba yet, y'all. But the other branch come from Muhammad al-Fadil ibn Ma'amin, who was the direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad through the lineage of Sayyidina Hassan ibn Ali Abu Talib. This branch was known as the Fadiliya. Now, go down a bit here now to frame this Senegal and Mauritania connection. Why Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba was sent there, what was the French's intention and reasoning behind sending them there, and did it work? So, because there were so many saints and arif, knowers of Allah, and ulama in Mauritania at that time, no one could pretend to be a saint in Mauritania at all. Look, could you imagine somebody showing up to a country full of Sufi saints trying to pretend to be a Sufi saint? Let's stop for a while. So what they're saying is anyone who tried to pretend to be a saint in Mauritania would be challenged by the several authentic sheikhs and arif and ulama that were there. So the first people to receive Seraing Touba was this tribe of the Banu Daiman. It says they were famous for having a very, very high level of Islamic knowledge. You know, the majority of that tribe was recognized by Seraing Tuba Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba as the highest wali of all times, and they became his disciples. After this, the other tribes and their saints and the ulama came and started to challenge him because they saw people starting to follow him. But remember, everybody thought that these sheikhs and scholars and ulama in Mauritania at the time were the highest. So, of course, they were already looking down. Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, where he come from, where he looked, how he presented himself, and stuff for a while. Challenged him. Why would they do such a thing? Some of them came to see him. Some of them came to send him letters with questions, trying to figure out who he is, where he come from, what does he know, where's the source of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's knowledge. Y'all, these people are really trying to figure him out. According to Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba satisfied everything, all the challenges that they threw at him. He even showed him some of the gifts or karamat that he never showed anybody before in Senegal. They say he didn't show people in Senegal those gifts because they would have been confused and thought he might not have been human. He showed the saints of Mauritania these gifts to prove his level, because he knew that they could understand them and not be confused. And he showed the saints of Mauritania these gifts. He showed the saints of Mauritania a glimpse of the level that he was at by the blessings of Allah. And they could not go against what they had just saw. Can we imagine that? Like, light-skinned or pale-faced or Greek or Jewish or Hebrew outsiders that weren't particularly from that area coming in, you know, what happened in history. We ain't got to dive too deep into that, right? But they lift themselves up in society to where nobody else is higher than them. French sent Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba on exile to Mauritania. In my mind, I'm thinking probably for that exact same reason, because if he was viewed as such a high saint and sheikh and wali in Senegal, if he was around people in Mauritania that the people in Mauritania view as higher than anybody anywhere, maybe Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba would see that he might not have been the. I can't even finish that sentence, y'all. But that's the intention on why he wound up being sent there, to kind of try to knock him down a peg. Hopefully he'll get there and see that these sheikhs and scholars and ulama that were in Mauritania were higher than him, and maybe he would take bayat with them. But that's not what happened. French plan backfired again, right? Because the majority of the first tribe that Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba went to go see, they became his disciples. Right, so he's over here supposedly over in exile, right? And people are still coming to him to get the bayat, still coming to him to get these deep teachings, these mystic teachings, these pragmatic and applicable teachings that we can use in everyday life. That it seems like they might not have been getting from them sheikhs and scholars and ulama and wali that were already in Mauritania. If they were the highest, don't you think that they would have had what Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba already had when he showed up? Not to do the same thing that they did, right? Not to lift them up on a pedestal above all the creation. Allah is above all the creation. But all of those saints, those are the ulama, sheikhs, knowers of Allah, from all those different tariqat, recognized Seraing Tuba as the highest wali of all time. So they started to write poems about him. They started to write asides about him that contained esoteric knowledge about him. Well, alhamdulillah, you see how that coin just flipped? He went to a place to where black people, dark people from certain countries would look down upon, even if they were Muslim, even if they were Sufi, even if they were in a tariqat, because it seems like a few people in Mauritania might have lifted themselves up using their ego, when the ego is the first thing that we're supposed to cut off on the path, right? Astaghfirullah. But towards the end of this exile, right now they're seeing proof. They're witnessing, they're bearing witness as Shaheed that, hey, something's different about this Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba character. I know he is dark. I know he's black. I know he's black. I know he probably has a big old fro or a whole bunch of dreadlocks up under that white hanging out of his head. But who is he and where did y'all find him and how soon can I take bait out? Is how the story wound up flipping. So this was the first time in history, because this was already a general consensus in Mauritania that the highest sheikhs and scholars in ulama were there. So the high sheikh scholar, Sheikh Wali, couldn't come from anywhere else. He had to come from Mauritania based on how they view things, right? But this was the first time in history at that point in time of Islam in West Africa that a black man from Africa received this type of recognition from Arab scholars and sheikhs. We remember that. Dr. Received that type of recognition from Arab scholars and sheikhs, sitting to the state of Mauritania for 4 years during his stay. Wrote a bunch of poems, metaphysical books, besides that some of us have access to. You'll go through the files in the WhatsApp group. You might run across a few of them that can only be understood by the initiated. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. They admitted they couldn't even describe his actual level because he was far beyond theirs. At the beginning of that, weren't we just seeing that at that point in time in history, the people in Mauritania, and now we see why they lifted themselves up a little bit higher than the black people in Africa, because the people in Mauritania at that time that he was sent to go on exile to and around were Arabs. Probably some mixed breeds here and there, whatnot, but Arab scholars, Arab sheikhs, Arab wali, Arab ulama, who have ingrained in society that they're the knowers, they're it. Ain't nobody else higher than us, bruh. But then here comes on exile Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, not even with the intention to prove that he is, was, still is, forever will be, but just does so based off of embodying the teachings and the actions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Quran and the Sunnah, and some of the deeper knowledge we get from these Sufi teachings from him and those that came before him. All praises to Allah. Them. Can we can't imagine that. I'm pretty sure some of us have probably had a similar judgment happen, right? I went to I'm not going to say the name of the masjid, but astaghfirullah for it even being a masjid. I went to the masjid, right? Brand new thobe from Sheikh Umar, Tijani Sheikh that bends at a local flea market. But this matching, thobe and pant set has the bifal patchwork on it, right? Has the bifal patchwork on it. And on a couple of the patchworks, there might be there might be a stick figure, holding up the I wish I knew the name of that big hammer or mallet that the bifal carry around with, or a figure holding up a pair of zikr beads. I know. Haram, haram, haram. But when I was approached, the brother that approached me didn't even mention the fact that some of those squares on this bifal shirt actually had stick figures or representations of people, images are haram in Orthodox Islam. He spoke more about the fact that the colors on my thobe were clashing and loud and show offy, distracting, right? And in the back of my mind, like, please be HR appropriate in your response, Bilal, inside of the mosque. Please be HR appropriate in your response inside of the mosque. I look over at him and say, well, aren't we all supposed to be looking at that indentation on the floor where we just bumped our forehead on the ground? You're not even supposed to be looking to the left of you or to the right of you, or in front of you, or behind you, or around Brother Muhammad, or around Brother Yusuf, or around. No. You prostrate and bump your head on the ground and lift your head up. You keep your focus there. So how could you even see me over here with these so-called loud colors on for it to be a distraction for you, Brother Muslim, while you're supposed to be in salat with your heart and your mind and in accordance with each other, in tune and focused on Allah. not to compare myself to the Sheikh, right? But I'm pretty sure us, Black in America, Moors in America, get looked at as unorthodox by the orthodoxy. But when you really get into Sufism, deeper Islamic knowledge that's available in the same Islam that they say they practice, you realize it's not that way. It's the other way around. Now, what did these poets and sheikhs and scholars have to say about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba? You mean to tell me he went up there and then showed them so much that they wound up writing qasides about him? We read qasides from him, Rabbi Kareem, and some of these people wound up taking bayat, learning more from and about him, and writing qasides about him. Now, that is the first page of this particular section of PDF, but all three of these I'll post in the WhatsApp group. So we'll kind of, we can read through and see the bigger picture and hopefully catch a glimpse at, even though we could never really know how it is, a glimpse at the level of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba Kareem Rasul, and be thankful to Allah for even allowing us the opportunity to get close to another Murid or close to another Bifal to even take Bayat into this very same order. We lot for that. Now, Qadim Rasul and Mauritania, from the Tariq al-Muradiya or way of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. His life was an unparalleled epic in the history of spirituality because he was constantly in confrontation with the French, I said it, colonialism, and was exiled in extreme conditions in equatorial Africa intentionally. I'm saying French, with the barking dogs. Then in the desert, I think I should say then in the Mauritanian desert. Astaghfirullah, several assassination attempts. Who would want to do such a thing? Several assassination attempts have miraculously failed. 100. The settlers end up changing their attitude towards Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. We remember some of those stories Sheikh Sufi winds up telling us about. You see him Bamba in front of the firing squad, and he's just sitting there, feeling head covered up, mouth covered up, and the French open fire on him, and their jaw drops after they see all the smoke clear. Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's still standing there. Man, angels swooped down so fast and stopped all those bullets. And as the smoke cleared, the French see the bullets drop and hit the ground. Hey, I turn tail and run too if I saw something like that. But Mauritanian scholars get this. The same Arab that might have been looking down upon Senegalese at that point in time in history, but those Mauritanian scholars consider Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba as the ultimate reference of Tawhid and Tasawwuf. This library is huge, y'all. This library is huge. If I ever do get a chance to go to Senegal, that's going to be one of the first places I go to. There's a total consensus. That means nobody is denying it. Nobody can deny it on his intellectual and his spiritual supremacy. So these Mauritanians unanimously recognize the supremacy of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba over everything he knew in Islam, apart from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And this consensus is still valid there till today. For an example, Sheikh Boudald Busairi, Imam of Nouakchott, was a great Salafi sheikh. Pause. Y'all know how rough it is to deal with some of the Wahhabi and the Salafis, right? This particular Salafi sheikh, not even just a Salafi imam, a Salafi sheikh, so he extra hardcore. All right, stop for a lot. This great Salafi sheikh said about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, Demo Rasul's greatest miracle is the consensus that he obtained in our country, Mauritania, because consensus is the most difficult thing to obtain, especially in Mauritania. This is a Salafi sheikh and probably an Arab saying this about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. And he goes on to say, until today, like still today, y'all get a visa, get your plane ticket, get the next flight to Mauritania, and the first person you see that you might be able to recognize as being a part of the Sufi order. That's what they think about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Surprised to hear the answer. But to today, they say, whoever dares to compare the Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba with someone other than the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that one who compares him is an ignoramus whose heart is darkened. He says that the people of Mauritania, their intelligence was exhausted to try to understand where Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba draws his inspiration from. Everything they knew was completely exhausted. They didn't know what else to try. They didn't know what other abject formula to overlay on top of the Qasides to try to break the code and figure out how to, read a deeper level of the Qaside, because a lot of them are very, 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 very coded and ciphered. Very, 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 very coded and ciphered. They couldn't figure out. They could not figure it out. Alhamdulillah for Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba coming to provide this example. Now, this one will frame it a bit, right, to see why people at that point in time and in that particular country and people in that country that were really from somewhere else, remember this, to be recognized as a scholar, you had to go study in Mauritania back then, right? I had to go study in Mauritania. So we had to travel in search of knowledge. It's always been a common practice against among the great ulama. So a practice strongly encouraged by the Prophet Muhammad himself, peace and salvation of Allah be upon him and his family. But if the purpose of these journeys was really the quest of knowledge or the quest for knowledge, going to Mauritania to be recognized as a scholar, it was not always the same with many of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's Black contemporaries. Indeed, the custom among them was that anyone who hoped to be recognized as an alim or a scholar made the trip to Mauritania, even if he didn't learn much when he was there. So that's how high up that the Arab in Mauritania had raised themselves, to where even people on the outside of Mauritania at that point in time were looking up to them, like, go learn from them brothers, man. They deep though, but if you don't learn nothing, I mean, at least you went. They had Bamba in their midst the whole time. They had Bamba in their midst the entire time. Allah and Prophet Muhammad were preparing him. Alhamdulillah. These Arabs in Mauritania still go on to say, and I'm glad, it's just some sort of a comeuppance and coming to terms with things, and how a particular viewpoint that we just kind of walked through and explained that they had against Senegalese and other Black Africans in countries that they haven't yet invaded. Let's start for a lot. They own it up and say we lacked esteem for the Black ulama. They wouldn't even look at a Black Noah of Allah. They wouldn't even look at a Black Wali. They wouldn't look at an African sheikh, an African saint, because they look at themselves as higher than those. To start for a lot. Then Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, say that no Arab is better than a Black, and no Black is better than an Arab, except for the measure of piety. Nobody is better than the next person unless that next person is closer to Allah than the previous person. There's nothing to even be mad about with that particular explanation, because both of the people are on their way to Allah. It is at different points on the journey to Allah. One of them wasn't. Astaghfirullah, get on the path. So if the Senegalese, they say, were so keen to stay in Mauritania to validate their knowledge, had to go to Mauritania just to validate the knowledge. Astaghfirullah, imagine that. I lived in Senegal, and my sheikh in Senegal made me a sheikh after going through the school and embodying the knowledge and being able to teach and deliver it. I went to Mauritania and told someone that I was a sheikh from so and so from Senegal, they wouldn't even acknowledge me as a sheikh. So I would have to go to Mauritania to study with them to be validated, right, from their viewpoint in regards to this knowledge. But it was due to the fact that the Black ulamas were not granted the credit recognized to their Moorish peers. Pause. Those Moorish peers may be those same Arabs that were being spoken of earlier, or there may be some of us. And in this case, I believe it's us because I won't give it to the outsider. The Moorish peers who were supposed to hold the lights of true knowledge. The Moors had held the light to true knowledge. If we pause and rewind a bit, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba didn't name this Sufi order after himself. The Tijani is named after Ahmed Tijani. The Shadiliya is named after Imam Hassan al-Shadili. The Qadiriya is named after Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani. But the Muridiya or the Muridullah is not named after Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. He didn't want to lift himself up, put himself on pedestal like that. So he named the Sufi order that we're in off of the very process that the person takes on his journeys and travels through the Sufi order. So as long as the person is on the path trotting forward, they are a murid. If they stop or they cease pushing forward, or their will and drive and volition to reach Allah falls off, they don't have it at that point. Based on what we got from Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba and teachers from Sheikh Sufi, keeping these beats moving, always playing the Kaside in the background, even if I'm not in the room. Like listen to and like a Spotify station that plays nothing but Kaside and turn the radio off because I don't play anything but garbage on there anyway. But in there again, with that comparison, Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba had escaped the established order and the cultural complex of his fellow citizens, even the Moors and even the Arab. Because Arab, complete outsider, not native to Africa at all. We just put that out there. However, the Moors still practice what looks like Islam, just slight difference and variation. If we go back and remember Master Musa, and we hear them stories about him going on Hajj and dropping off gold everywhere from here all the way into to Mecca and back. Isn't he always depicted also wearing gold? But if anybody's been through the Orthodoxy, they'll know Muslim men don't wear gold. Orthodox Muslim men or Muslim men who went through the Orthodoxy, even if they worked their way up to being in a Sufi order, do not wear gold. Gold is for the female. They wear silver, stainless steel, something not flashy. We wouldn't want we're not meant to try to be show offy in the deen. All right. So just a distinguishing factor. Whatever they're practicing would still look like Islam, but how they dressed and displayed themselves might not have to those Arabs, or might not have to some today. But bro, if you go to Senegal right now and look at Haifa, if you didn't have any knowledge of Sufism and people would say, yeah, those are Muslims, and you look at people with dreadlocks, talismans, 7 or 8 zikr beads around their neck, mallet and a begging bowl, and he's just yelling la ilaha illallah over and over and over and over. How are you doing today, brother? Father, that's not Islam. People wouldn't believe it. But those differences shouldn't matter. Those perceived heights above the next in elevation and light of knowledge shouldn't have happened, shouldn't have been so prevalent in the societies back then. Alhamdulillah, when Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba shows up and he sees this, he's even tried by a few people there, but he's confident in his knowledge and in his own intellectual fields, right? He knew what Allah sent to Prophet Muhammad to come out and give to him. He received it. So he writes books in just go and say it, asinine amounts of numbers, to the point where like most people don't say how many qasides Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba wrote. They weigh them. That's tons, tons of writings. Too many books to count, too many qasides to count. We'll weigh them all. So he did this to comment on the opinions of the great ulama and invited his contemporaries to judge his opinions according to their relevance, but not according to racial prejudice or other subjective considerations, as he had to say in the itineraries of paradise, or this is the pathways to paradise, or Masalik al-Jinnan, favorite book. They tells them, do not be fooled by my condition as a black man, so as not to benefit from my work, because the most honorable man with Allah, with God, is undoubtedly the one who fears him the most, the one who is most conscious of Allah, one who is most pious of Allah, one who is closest to Allah, and that without discrimination of any kind. Indeed, the black color of the skin can in no way be the basis of a man's stupidity or his inability to understand. And I always wondered, like, where that particular, I guess, where the inspiration for that one line at the beginning of Masalik al-Jinnan came from. Because we know the French wasn't reading this Qasides. They were burning our houses with stuff in them. They weren't reading the Qasides. So I'm like, who else? Like, who could that have been written for from back then perspective? But now we get to see Arabs in Mauritania, based on how they looked at themselves above the Black African. And Sheikh had to go on exile, supposedly going away on exile to experience a rougher and rugged way of life and get knocked down a few pegs. But then he comes back with more disciples. He comes back with people that were in Mauritania that previously thought down about him and other Black Africans that were reading his qasides. And still today, people in Mauritania hold him in very, very high regard, whereas 200 years or so ago, they wouldn't hold anybody that looked like him or us in high regard. So, he wasn't just there once. I don't know why they didn't, see it didn't work the first time, right? But the second exile, they'll send him back there again. I don't know why they tried it, but the purpose of this particular exile or deportation, let's see how they describe it, right? Deportation to Mauritania was to make him feel his inferiority because of the Moors of white color. They make a distinguishing factor. So whenever you see them speak about the Moors in this particular paragraph, know that they're speaking about, we just call them for who they are, man. Them white folks, they got a costume. Apparently, based on what they're doing up there in Mauritania at this time, it's not very Islamic, not very Muslim-like. Because for these colonialists, if he took himself for a scholar, he would find the Moors more versed in him than in the Islamic sciences. So that's why he's sent up there again, up into them white Moors this time, because they got the real deal, Holyfield, so they say. Stop real. But those people are also colonialists. There's a pretty sinister intention of why they sent him up there like that. To think that after his first experience that he would go further into Mauritania, right, and bump into, Astaghfirullah, what is a white Moor? But to bump into, you might just call them for who they are, white people, invaders. I'm not too sure, Greek, Roman, Jew, or whatnot. We won't make any distinction, but they thought that he was going to see that there were people there higher than him yet again when it didn't work the first time, because this is not at all a constant reality, like it says here. If he also considered himself, which he was, a family that was rooted in nobility, he would find that the nobility of a black line can never match those of the families who live in the Mauritanian desert. So they're expecting him to have this type of thought and to realize, you know what? I think they got it, bro. Like, yeah, the Arabs are superior. No, stop for a while. Stop for a while. Stop for a while. They also aimed to put him in an embarrassing situation. I don't even want to know. So that he ceased his activities and abandoned his project on religious reform. They really had it out for this man. But alas, for these colonists, the result of this deportation turned out to be completely contrary to what they expected. Alhamdulillah, which totally upset their plans and their schemes. This time, it was no longer about trials, but about consecration. Because the Moors, same ones from the previous time, right, who had a host of scholars and saints and wali and ulama, very famous people in Africa, so it says, and in the Islamic world, were all unanimous in considering Kalim Rasul as an exception, a saint, incomparable, whose extraordinary status is indisputable. See how they use a bigger word to describe him now? They even wrote testimonials in prose and poetry on his exceptional gifts and privileges. This particular one mentioned by Sheikh Ahmadou Sayyid al-Baladini, the collection of Moors on the gifts of Sheikh al-Khadim, the master of whites and blacks in the West. Before we go any further, does anyone have any questions about this particular part in Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's life, his trials and journey coming from Senegal, going to Mauritania the first time, from Senegal, Mauritania the second time, and any clarity on the types of people who were in Mauritania at that time? Right. Previously, we hear from the Salafi Sheikh. We know how they are. We're still are, stalker a lot. But a Mauritanian traditionalist, Fakir Khizr ibn Mayaba, who is the most implacable critic of the Tijaniya in Mauritania. And when pretty much what they mean by that, the most implacable critic of the Tijaniya is that he was just against everything Tijani, everything Sufi, the way that they practiced Islam, up and down, left and right, just like Satan looking to see whom he might devour. But before settling in Arabia, where this Mauritanian traditionalist became known as the Qadi Malikite of Medina. Malik is a king, ruler, governor, and Qadi, that should be spelled with a Q and not a C, but start for a while. A Qadi is a judge, right? But the same traditionalist, hardcore traditionalist and hardcore critic of the Tijaniya or the Tijani Sufi order, sent to Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba one of his works and dedicated it to him. Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba is out here bringing the light to the Salafis and the Wahhabis and Uber traditionalists. Fakir Khizr ibn Mayaba apologized for having fought against and slain the Tijaniya and affirmed that he is not an enemy of Tasawwuf and the Sufis, but that his approach tended to rectify the inconsiderate remarks introduced by disciples by excessive zeal, distorted the teachings of Sufi masters. So he kind of tried to cover himself up. He did apologize for what he did and then tried to kind of explain why he did. But after seeing Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, maternal side Tijani, paternal side Qadri, and currently at this point in time, boarded, right, 3 or 4 Sufi orders all in one. And the ways that this Mauritanian traditionalist, Bache Khizr ibn Mayaba, was looking at the Tijani Sufi order and projecting this on all of the other Sufi orders in West Africa, like this is how they are. They do things this way and that's wrong. They do things this way and that's the wrong. And we gotta go do jihad. We gotta go fix this. He came back and had to apologize for what he did after seeing that Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba comes from that same country. Tijaniya or the Tijani is in Senegal too. They're as far down as Nigeria. But Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba came from the same country. But some of these Tijani that this Mauritanian traditionalist has some not so nice words and probably some not so nice actions about. But after seeing and witnessing Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, I had to apologize and stop for Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Stop for That's where it gets deep. Sheikh Sidi Baba comes back again because he was mentioned in the very, very first page that we opened up. He died in 1342 of Hijra, which is 1924 Christian era. The Sheikh was the pivot of the Qadiriya and his point of reference at that time. So in a poem, Sheikh Sidi Baba includes a large collection of several thousand verses from the poets of the Mauritanian Zawiya on the merits of Sheikh Wolfuddin, DJ Rewind That, a large collection of several thousand verses from poets that wrote about the merits of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, Kabir Rasul. How does he do it? Sheikh Sidi Baba gives a testimony on Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, whom he describes as being a philosopher's stone with marvelous properties. And here are those verses. I'm going to bookmark this because I want to hear it in Arabic. Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba is a blessing dedicated to all creatures from their lower. Praise be to God, whose blessings cannot be enumerated by his creatures at any time when the need arises. He willingly raises the standard of glory with joy when noble ambitions are lacking, determined and decided. It carries the greatest of them. The land which has the honor of sheltering it does not have to complain about the absence of rain. You make people forget by your generosity, beggars their own country until they consider your home theirs. They welcome them with sincere joy as if they are the ones who will give him what he gave. All the communities testify that he is generous, noble, very pious. He is one of those who would make it his duty to make himself useful to people, as well as he is one of those who frequently mention the name of Allah, the name of God, Zikr Allah Akbar. He accepts events as they unfold, recovering to God, knowing that it is his Lord who unfolds them. La ilaha illallah wa la ilaha illallah. Those who are lost in their darkness, may prosperity continue to descend onto you. He's in prose about Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, and to continue to breathe in its blessing, people flock to him to find solutions to their occupations, some relating to life here below, others life in the hereafter. Pretty sure that the sentence structure might be a little bit clearer and concise from Arabic to English stuff. Now we get to see how these people are writing about him in some of these guides after the fact. Now we got to see how Mauritania was with these different and varying groups of people that were there. To frame it, now we had the Arabs, right? Different types of Arabs that were invading or had already invaded, were there settled, colonizing. There were groups of Moors that were there. Astaghfirullah for making a distinction, but Arabs, Moors, and not too many, darker sub-Saharan Black Africans. Right? Ali Majahate Kalla, that's a Senegalese name. The history of Senegal will never forget this exceptional genius, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, who will forever mark its pages. The Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba is a great character. He was an outstanding judge, Qadi, for that word from earlier. Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba was an outstanding judge, a poet, and a witness of his time to the fact that he was one of the greatest minds produced by the Senegalese literature of Arabic expression at that time. That last part, last half, last sentence, I don't think people realize how deep that is. Senegalese literature of Arabic expression at that time. Senegalese literature of Arabic expression. Senegalese literature of Arabic expression. I believe me if I told you that in Senegal, the Wolof have a way of taking Arabic letters like this, same Arabic letters you'll find in Qasides, same Arabic letters you find in the Quran, just written a little bit different. They may make very, very slight modifications to them just to distinguish them from one sound to another sound, and will turn around and write poetry in Wolof using Arabic letters and Arabic philology and the science and construction of Arabic words with a bumbleclot West African language and mastermind to be able to fully know the dialectics and how one whole entire language works, its exoterics and its esoterics, its abjad, its numerical repetitions, and the same thing with another language. And to take this language, but don't write it in this language, write it in this language. So I'm pretty sure, y'all, there's some billboards in Senegal. There's probably a street sign in Senegal that even if an Arab did walk by, he would look up at it. I don't know what this means. Those letters are Arabic, but that word on that street sign, I don't know what that means. That's my language. All right, those are my letters in my language, but I don't know what the word on this street sign means. That's because it's a Wolof word. It's a Wolof word. So Senegalese literature of Arabic expression, this term is called Ajami. Ajami, Ajam. Ajami is a tool that Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba was master at using, to where you could take one language and then write it with the letter, word, and sentence structure of another language. You could do that same exact thing and then take the cipher system, the abjad or the gematria or whatever, and apply one to the other in such a way that by the time you get done, you've created a cipher that only you know how to crack. Probably take somebody else 2, 3, 4 times, 787 times as long to crack that cipher, all because of a realm of knowledge that is available for brothers and sisters like us and in this here Tariqat. From me to Ahmadou Bamba, who left and forgot all that is outside of God until he became the master of all men. He is an escape, a refuge, a shelter, and a help for all these people when misery and evil falls on them. True. Think I'm having a bad day and come home and read a Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba Kasai, you forgot what was bad about whatever part of the day that I just thought was bad. this great poet, Ali Majahate Kala, he had to write an excellent poem to describe how the disciples of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba are. So we've heard some write poems about how Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba is, but there's been people that have studied him by way of studying his disciples. And Khali Majakate Kala was so moved that he wrote a poem about the disciples of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba to pay homage to Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Alhamdulillah. This poem, a very captivating musical cadence. I want to find that in Arabic too, because astaghfirullah, some of the rhymes don't translate from Arabic to English, so we'll see how this turns out. They are well-educated people, talking about the disciples of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. So Khalil Majakate Kala studying people that like us. Right? They are well-educated people who have the good conduct to lower their voices and their looks until they are mistaken for the sick who need doctors, or the poor who seek almsgivers eager to be rewarded. That's piety and humility 101. Their Lord, when the discussion was engaged for a moment between us, so Ali Majakate is now talking to a disciple. When the discussion was engaged for a moment between us, I asked him for a laborious service. Considering the service requested very easy, they took their axes resolutely with strong hands, and they oriented themselves towards a grove of trees with branches thick and split. They disappeared. Yeah. They disappeared into the forest. The echo of their pikes remained heard like the swords of Badr on the day when the truth of the Prophet Islam broke out. They had gone barefoot. These disciples went barefoot. They picked their axe up and they went and did work without carrying no heat or thorn, but only carrying out the order. None of them met a woman foreign to them without lowering or turning their gaze. They only raised their voices to mention the name of God. La ilaha illallah. And they did not delay the prayers, whether obligatory or supererogatory. I swear by God that if their master had ordered them to drive the enemies out of the land, they would have shaken the whole earth. There's more than by far and doggone every country on the world right now. So imagine how many this takes Surain Muntaka, the current living Caliph, to receive a message from the unseen. And Surain Muntaka just says the word. And the signal gets sent out to all the Murid and all of the Bifal to drive away out of the enemies of the land. They would have shaken the whole earth. It's the picture that the brother is painting. Not describing Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, he's describing the power of the disciples of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. They didn't do anything wrong. They only raised their voices to mention the name of God, Zikr Allahu Akbar. They didn't delay prayers, whether obligatory or supererogatory. So they made the 5 and the other 14 to 16. He says, I swear by God that if their master, he said, if Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba had ordered them to drive the enemies out of the land, when they took off to go drive the enemies out of the land, that stampede would have shaken the entire earth. I guarantee you that order would have been carried out if it would have been the will. Now, if memory serves correct, now Muhammad Fadl ibn Ahmed Ali al-Kubi was Arab. So in a short panegyric or qaside about him, writing about Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba now, from the perspective of someone from Mauritania still. He says, blacks and whites have argued about you. You've decided between them in all fairness. For some, you offer your body. For others, you reserve your reality. Some enjoy your writings and your marvels. For others, of your service and of your closeness. Everybody is happy with what they got. It's up to everyone to make the best use of what you have for them given. Truly, your gifts are endless, and neither blacks nor whites can ever exhaust it. Yeah, that is deep. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Mountain Buddha. Can I cut you off? I remember a little bit further up, blacks and whites argued about you. The Arab and then Moors argued about him. But he decided between them in all fairness. He didn't lift one up higher than the other. He didn't knock one down lower than the other. He went there, he knew what he was sent there for, and he did his job in the most fair way possible, most Islamic way possible, without going against anything in the creed of Islam. And even while he was dealing with all of that, for some, he would offer his body, meaning Sheikh would get up and go work for people. He would help people do things. You need help carrying that bag, sister? Oh, don't worry about it. I got that for you. For others, you reserve your reality. So for others, he reveals himself as this master teacher. He reveals himself for who he really is for those that need to see it. Some enjoy your writings. Some enjoy your writings. Some enjoy your writings and your marvels. The others of your service and your closeness. Khidmatul, khidmat, khidmat. And what everybody gets from Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, they are happy with what they got. So it's up to us, right? Because what he's saying in his next line is up to us to make the best use of what Sheikh had for us that he gave to us by way of these qasides, by way of these teachings, by way of these teachers that came from him and from his teachings. Because the gifts that he has to give are truly endless, just as the source where those gifts come from, Ya Allah, is truly endless. And may I even add on to say, not blacks, not whites, not Jamaicans, not Chinese, not Japanese, not whatever race you want to say. All of us can try to do it at the exact same time, and we'll still never be able to exhaust. We'll still never be able to get to the bottom of the ocean that is Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. I tried swimming, y'all, but I had to come back up to get a breath of air. It's too deep. It is too deep. I do believe this is the last one, and we can open up for a quick dialogue for closing. So. Now, this last one, now this person's still from the perspective of someone from Mauritania. Al-Tanguri, that's a hard one. Sheikh Abdullah ibn al-Tanguri wrote during his visit to Jurabel. So this Sheikh didn't just stay in Mauritania. He just stayed where he was at. During his visit to Jurabel, he writes in a poem, as he says, "You surpassed the saints who preceded you, as the best creature, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, surpassed his predecessors. It is to this same Sheikh Abdullah that Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba said, we have here a poem which will preserve whoever has learned it by heart from the questioning that the angels called Munkar and Nakir make each death suffer in his grave." We'll run that back because this will be a little Sufi homework. We got to find this qaside that they're mentioning and they're hitting that here. We have here a poem which will preserve whoever learned it by heart from the questioning that the angels, Munkar and Nakir, make each person who dies suffer in his grave. So astonished, of course, I would be too. Abdullah said, La ilaha illallah, where is this poem? There's no God but God. Where is this poem? He is with Muhammad al-Amin here, replied the Sheikh. In the name of God, Bismillah, I will teach it to my children, my wives, and he began to enumerate the names while the Sheikh laughed. Nice coming together, nice end of the conversation. So this particular poem, this particular qaside, we'll see who can be the first one to find it. The qaside that if a person memorizes it and learns it by heart, that will cause the angels, Munkir and Nakir, to not question you in the grave, to not cause that point of suffering in that particular part of leaving this body. Right? That won't happen. You will be preserved from having to deal with that test and trial if you learn this particular poem. And this qaside begins thus. Thanks to the Quran, I remain close to my Lord, the Helper. I mastered my soul and cast out Satan and ... I screenshot that one. If anybody has the qaside apps that the brothers in Senegal are so gracious to work on to translate qasides from the Maghribi Arabic into English transliteration, meaning you can pronounce it in Arabic, but with reading it with English letters. And they also translate a lot of these qasides from the Maghribi into English also. So 787 Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahims to the one who can come up with this qaside. The Sheikh Abdullah ibn al-Tanguri, that's still such a hard last name, a G and a GH. Was questioning him about a poem that if somebody memorizes it, you will be preserved from the tests and trials of the angels, Munkir and Nakir. I want that. And I want that for all of us. So if we'll work together on that, if anyone has access to some qasides, screenshot this. And if you run across it, send a screenshot to the group and we'll know who to get those Bismillah sent on over to. The qaside begins, thanks to the Quran, I remain close to my Lord, the Helper. I mastered my soul and cast out Satan and ... I will say it's not a very, very long qaside. Not a very long qaside at all, alhamdulillah. Now, from those references, that is what we had on a different perspective of how we see or how we've heard stories about Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba being sent to Mauritania, going through certain tests and trials, and we hear about them on his way back. We hear about them from people that may have been around him or from people that he told it to, people that learned about it. But now, hopefully this shed a bit of light about how our beloved Sheikh is viewed from a different perspective, from the point of view from the society that he was sent to go be exiled in. To start off and see that just even back then at that point in time, yeah, there was still racism still going on now, because we won't go off on that on that tangent. But at that particular point in time, there was some racism, classisms, my ism is better than your ism, and your ism isn't the real ism, and start for Allah. But it took for Allah to bring to the world a Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. It took for him to go through some tests and trials, the harder the better, like Sheikh Rafal teaches us, to be sent to a place like that, where there were people like that, to be the example, to be such an example to that today in that same country that didn't look at us in such a positive light back then, hold us in a little bit higher regard, have applied some of the teachings, or even teaching some of the teachings from our beloved Sheikh in Mauritania. All right. So now there's a coming together where there was a separation. And if there's one thing that Muslims don't deal with, it's separation. La ilaha illallah. Allahu wahidun. Kul hu Allahu ahad. Allah is one. Allahu wahidun. Allah is the only one. La ilaha illallah. There is nothing else in existence but the only being in existence. And it's been a pleasure speaking with Allah in the person of selves in here. Salams to Mario Ayashe Alfeas, Big Salad, Brother Curtis Bay, Mom Jara from across the other side of the United States, Ethan Native, Brother Habibi Salihin, Fall, Salam, Brother Issa Bay, Mount Builder. We gotta build on the Ogogi Indian Mounds and Olmec connection. I need to holler at you about that one day. So,
Amen. I mean.
I do believe I'm gonna butcher it, but Teotihuacan. There's a known settlement that grew over there that has their pyramid set up in a particular order, aligned with a particular constellation, particular procession, and the whole entire complex is also astronomically aligned. All of the mounds in Macon, Georgia are perfectly aligned with the exact same constellations as those mounds in Teotihuacan. And as far back as I can search in Teotihuacan, the first stories we hear about people being there were settlers, Black settlers, Olmecs. So Teotihuacan is looking like was originally an Olmec settlement, and some of the palaces and temples that they set up in the way in order they set them up, they took that science with them to places that they went to. So now I'm just trying to figure out like when did the first like Spaniard or Portuguese show up down there to then turn around and push them up here and then, pick back up on the history on these mounds up here just for, a little extra icing on the cake. But when you see stuff like that, it's the exact same structure for the layout of the entire mound complex, and it matches perfectly with an Olmec settlement. Bro, we at home. Tell these two about to get off our land. Let's stop for the tangent, but if anyone has any testimonies, any questions, anything to go back and rehash, we'll open up the floor for a sec here. If all hearts and minds are clear, as I used to say in the church, let us a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi wa huwal aliyyul azim. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim. Waladhdallin. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا وسيلتنا إليك محمد البادر وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وجلني بجاهه الأنام لكل مطيع. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا ووسيلتنا إليك محمد البادر وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وانشر بجاهه بركات في البر والبحر. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا ووسيلتنا إليك محمد الباقيس وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وجلني بجاهه رحمة لمن لا يجلس وما يجلس. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا ووسيلتنا إليك محمد الباقي وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وأقمني في الدارين بجاهه الجملة الأسماء. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. These are all great things brought to us by the blessings of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba by way of the Lord Muhammad, sent directly from Allah. May the peace, blessings, and mercy of Allah be upon each and every single one of you. Love you all for the sake of Allah and Allah. And until we meet again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Sheikh Imam.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum salam.